we lived in an age for a short period where it was really cheap and you could get everything you wanted.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it was like, this isn't actually that sustainable from a financial point of view. Yeah. And so we're going to remodel it.
Today, in a sort of special quickfire edition of Having a Gas, I'm having a gas with Franki Goodwin, the Chief Creative Officer here at Saatchi Saatchi. And normally, so we've got about half an hour, and normally at the half-hour mark, I've just about got people thawed out. So we're going to have to race through some small talk.
That's fine.
Yeah, pandemic been bad, weather good.
Yeah, boring, COVID,
London
God.
busy again.
What to do?
Okay.
Yeah, tube's packed.
Great. Saatchi Saatchi. So how long have you been CCO here, by the way?
Not very long. I've been, I stepped into the role in about June, I think. Yeah, Cannes time.
And did they bring you in with, because I imagine, for obvious reasons, with what's happened recently, I imagine it being like a kind of a coronation type event. It's like you have a mandate to
it's
deliver some big things. What happens when they're having those conversations with you and you're being called up to lead the most famous agency?
I have to say it wasn't something I sort of was like laser focused on. You know, I think I'm very focused on the work, and I have been at Saatchi for 9 years. Yep. So, you know, I feel like I was doing something right, but you know, I think I've been very focused on the work and the parts of the business that I was looking after and getting those into good shape. And we had a new CEO who came in at the beginning of the year. So I was very focused on, you know, building my relationship with Chris and building up my squad, which was how we had kind of taken the business and put it into sort of 3 tranches in order to create almost like little mini agencies.
Right.
So that was all super, super new, and that was kind of rolling and we were kind of getting going, and you know, we were feeling like that was working really well.
Yeah.
So I really didn't have a promotion in my mind at that point. And so when Chris talked to me about the opportunity, it was quite a surprise.
Yeah.
But then quite quickly became something that I was like, oh yeah, no, this feels like a jacket I can wear.
Yeah.
You know, and strangely, I think having run my own business when I was younger, even though that was on a much smaller scale, I think the feeling is quite familiar. You know, the feeling is, okay, there's no one coming to save you.
Yeah.
It's sort of on you.
Yes.
And as long as you're kind of comfortable with that. And when you speak to a coronation, I think there was an element of, you know, I found quite funny around the press side of it, you know, and the fact that it was like, right, no, we would do the press release and we want to make sure that by the time we're in Cannes, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm not Jurgen Klopp. Like, this is insane, you know?
Yeah.
But I guess in our own world, there is a story there. Like you said, it is a famous agency. And so, yeah, having that sort of coronation feeling at Cannes, where you kind of are stepping into a world where people maybe didn't know who you were before, and now they do, and you're kind of meeting people and they don't ask you your name, and that's quite a weird feeling.
Yeah.
You know, like when you kind of go, I'm Frankie, and they go, I know. And you're like, oh God.
Did they do it on a stage kind of reveal? This is
No. I think the only thing that felt like that was because we launched the NCS, the New Creators Showcase, for its 32nd year. And so it was a huge honor to be able to be on stage for that and present that to Cannes. And that definitely felt like, wow, okay, this is, you know, because the agency know me. There was a moment here where I stood up and I, you know, was like, hey guys, it's me now. Yeah. And that was really lovely. And what I did then was I took them back through the work that I'd done before Saatchi's and sort of introduced myself, almost reintroduced myself. Yeah. But at Cannes, launching the New Creators Showcase and being able to go on stage and introduce our vision for that was a real honor and really did feel like quite a big deal.
Yeah. Does you mentioned, well, there's so many things to pick up on. One thing you mentioned was you have somewhat divided the agency into these 3 sort of separate divisions that I'm guessing do different types of communications and
it's more just along client lines.
Right,
so
okay,
it's to do with being able to really create a connection between your lead planner, creative productions, very specifically bringing production to that level as well, and your account leads to have a more sort of integrated view on the clients. So it's squad A, B, and C. I mean, it's not named like that for it. It's just it's quite operational.
Yeah.
The culture is Saatchi and Saatchi. The creative department is Saatchi and Saatchi. It's it's a very helpful operational structure that allows you to be very, very focused on the bits of business and build and make and give autonomy to the leaders of each squad and connection to the creatives and connection to the output in a more meaningful way. And it's also a great way to pitch.
Nice. So you've been here for 9 years already. And so I assume that means that you didn't feel some great weight of I'm now leading the Saatchi team.
No,
because you've already been here, you're part of the furniture. So I'm guessing the transformations were less to do with, big brash reputations and more to do with transformations with, your internal relationships. It's like, you're the boss now. Okay. And then, how do you manage that when you've been on the same level as people for so long and then you get that step up?
Gosh, I think everybody's approach to that is quite personal. And I think it's probably quite individual in terms of how that works with different people. I found it relatively smooth. And I think the fact that I do know people well, that it's been quite a easy and respectful transition. I don't hasn't possibly from the outside it or even not so much from the outside, but imagining it is bigger than it feels. Like, when you're in it, all these things are always relatively organic.
Yeah.
And for me, I'm more focused on making sure that we have some outside voices coming in now.
Yeah.
Because I'm not the hand grenade of a new face, of a new person, of like, that was like Chris was the,
Yes.
And in a positive hand grenade, obviously. But I think
good hand grenade.
Yeah. The someone comes in and goes, right, we're going to change everything. We're going to change the way we do things. We're going to be in squads and everything's going to be structurally different. And we're going to go after new clients and blah, blah, blah. But so I'm really focused on, my relationships internal are in really good shape. I think it's about making sure that there's some new voices moving forward as well.
What does that mean? New voices?
Well, replacing myself for a start. And bringing in a new ECD, that takes time.
Yeah.
And finding the right collaborators. Because I've got some great people here, but
yeah. You ran your own business when you were younger.
I did.
And I presume that that gave really useful early experience that was probably quite rapid and quite difficult learning that has been useful later on. That's an assumption, but I'll try and repackage it as a question because, did that make it easier? Has running your own thing when you were younger made some of the challenges of being, leading an operation already familiar to you? It's like I remember having to do this when we would,
Yeah, I think for me it was more of a confidence thing. I don't. It was a very small and naive operation, and with a huge ambition and doing really interesting work. Oh, so I ran a company called Franki and Johnny, surprisingly with a guy called Johnny.
Yeah.
And we built that out of an opportunity that we got to build a website for a film, which sounds sort of what, but going on location and building a kind of content-driven platform in 2001 was quite revolutionary.
Yeah.
And
I didn't want to guess when it was, but that's
So that was we then built. That was pretty much my first thing I did out of college, and then we built that as a kind of digital boutique offering around films and independent films and cinemas and all kind of building campaigns for films, basically.
Yeah. Was that inspired by your interest in film? Was that because that was what you were into, or
absolutely not? It was completely random. I met Johnny, who became my business partner in my first job, which was a graphic design job at a company called SAS, who are now MSL, who are actually owned by the Publicis Group. So, funny how life comes full circle. But I was a junior designer doing quite corporate print, learning a hell of a lot about how to just be a grown-up, but with an eye on... And I was interested in the digital world, but maybe mainly just because I was young, in that way that you don't didn't think about media and platforms with any kind of restriction or, I'm not a digital person and I'm not a tech person. I remember saying to Johnny very early on, he said, come to Venice and do this website with me. And I said, I don't know how to build websites. He went, it doesn't matter. I just need ideas.
Yeah.
I'll build it. And I think that's, talking about my career, I think that's always been something that I have been lucky enough to kind of cultivate, is that Glasgow School of Art was very much a place where you learn how to think rather than what to do, and it was about communicating ideas and thoughts and making people react to. It wasn't sort of box ticking or like design a logo by Tuesday kind of thing. So that created a person who didn't think in terms of like medium and I'm a print designer or I'm a brand designer or whatever. And then I think when I was staring down an opportunity in advertising, however many years later, you're like, I don't know how to do this, but it'd be fine. I'm sure it's just about ideas, right? And I've got lots of skills, but I'll just the whole where it lives and media budgets and media plans and stuff. I'll just get the hang of that.
Yeah, I follow. I don't know if you follow the kind of any of the advertising meme accounts on Instagram.
Oh yes, I do.
And they're really good. Yeah, brilliant satire. But one thing I notice is one of them in particular, I won't name drop because I'm not being paid to, is very, very interested in all things to do with the media landscape and the media spend and the controversy around Netflix's entry into the ad world and how much they're going to be charging. And I noticed that a great deal of the discussion in advertising is about the media. And it's about where it goes and for how long and how much it costs. Do you feel like the creative side of the industry is on the back foot in terms of priorities, how important, the different disciplines feel? I'll add on to the end of that. A lot of us growing up, teenagers watching Mad Men thought, advertising is all about the idea. And you can even see in that show, the balance tips towards the media by the end with Harry Crane and his computer being the talk of the town. Is that reflective of how it feels in the industry, or is that just the ramblings of someone who looks at a couple of Instagram accounts?
I don't have that impression. I still feel creative is king.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that there's a lot of media partners that would be like, oh God, if only,
Yes.
I think the reason possibly, I don't know that particular Instagram account, but I think possibly the reason that it's a big discussion is because it's become a measurement of how much reach you can get, because organic reach has become almost like a myth.
Yes.
Like a mystical thing that used to happen once.
Yeah. We found that with this show as well.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure. So I think the realities of the need for media support, and to really try and create things that are proportional to your media spend have become maybe a little bit louder, but I don't. Yeah, I still feel people are more interested in what's in the content.
Yeah, I'd hope so. Because I don't have the time to go off on this ramble, so I'll keep that one for next time. But it's definitely something that is constantly on my mind with regards to music, which is our first love, and soundtracks had interest in being very melodic, very ear catching, let's say. And now soundtracks are very. Movie soundtracks kind of feel like large scale professional library music now, as in it's not intrusive, it's not particularly characterized, it's very ignorable, but it's there and it serves a purpose. We found that with we put on the sort of music from the latest James Bond film in the studio, but without showing what it was. It's like, which film is this? Do you recognize it? So what I'm saying, I suppose, is a long way around saying I feel like across the board, and it's possibly because of the rapidly transforming technological landscape, the conversation can often be about what the new medium is doing, what TikTok is providing. And,
yeah, that's fair.
So I suppose less, and I'm not like a pessimist saying that it's never about the ideas and never will be. But I think in a time of sort of like technological transformation, the technology becomes the story. Is there anything you're doing here at Saatchi to try and react to that? How do you deliver a campaign that can run on TV and on TikTok and on Instagram?
Yeah, there's a lot of questions in there. I think the my approach to working with platforms, and it's really interesting because I went to an event with Snap. I'm on the Snap Creative Council, and I think that again, it slightly comes back to the sense of like not thinking in terms of media, thinking about how an idea can live in the right places in the right ways. And I think, having been a digital creative, there was always that time where it would be like, right, here's the idea. Now, can you come up with the Facebook add-on to it? And being like, that's not how you kind of do digital. It shouldn't be born out of a TV ad. And I think we've really, as an industry, really moved on from that and are trying to have bigger ideas with bespoke solutions is such a horrible couple of words, but, with bespoke solutions that are basically about how people interact with that media, or how people use that, and the way that young people use Snap versus how they use even TikTok is very, very different, and I find that incredibly fascinating. Was learning recently about how there's kind of a return to horizontal video, also just known as video, and I love the idea that in like 10 years time, the 30-year-olds in 10 years time would be like, yeah, I created that, because everyone was using it like the other way around before. And we were like,
vintage.
Like, yeah, that's how we did it for like 200, whatever, since the beginning of, since the beginning of
horror
telly
stories
of film.
to kids who weren't around in the 90s and say the TV was square at one point.
I mean, try making archive documentaries with all the footage from a 4:3 world. 4:3, by the way, I think is the ugliest format for anything. I used to design a lot of movie posters, and in America, you've got your one sheets. You've got these lovely portrait. Portrait is a lovely format for posters. Yep. And in the UK, we have these things called quads, which are 4:3, and it's just the ugliest format to build.
Is it only here?
Yeah.
Like driving on the left and the pound?
It's only here. It's to some weird, empirical. But the boxes that sit outside cinemas are 4:3. So quads, UK quads, they're called.
So it's like an imperial measurement.
Yeah, it's like an imperial measurement. Yeah.
That's insane. If we had another hour, I would just do design Q&A because I know nothing about this. I can see this is a very design-led agency because of the cardinal sin of arranging books by color. I can see that copywriters did not design this room.
I do that too.
Yeah.
You can. There's some good books around, but yeah, I hadn't actually noticed that. So sorry, going back to your question about the platforms, I think working with platforms in an honest way and finding what's unique and bespoke to those platforms is the way to let an idea live and breathe and be authentic. And I think authenticity is probably the biggest word that the thing that you need to hold on to when you're doing that. It's like, and that's what I try and do with as we're rolling something like Hope United out across different platforms, tackling online hate in different places as well. You've got to react to that in an appropriate way on the right channels. So it's very much part of what we do.
So those of us who watch from the outside, what sort of Saatchi and Saatchi, I mean, we're, our company, we're sort of an ancillary business providing music to the industry. So we're not in the industry, but we kind of watch it from the side. And so we look at the campaign creative work page. And when we see Saatchi and Saatchi these days is usually with BT and EE, which is, again, difficult to say. So, what other stuff is going on that isn't these big flagship sort of, huge clients that you're very excited about at the moment, that isn't this big, that I'm just going to repeat the question again.
No, I get it. So EE and BT are like a big pillar of our business. A really long-standing relationship with EE. I mean, we basically launched EE.
Yeah.
And we've I've been here quite a long time, and that we do have very proud of the long-standing partnerships we have. Direct Line is another one.
Yes.
It's something that I've been closer to historically.
You worked on all the Harvey Keitel stuff.
I didn't. I got involved with Direct Line for life after Harvey, as we called it.
Yep.
So it was like taking that big decision to move away from that creative platform, because it had been hugely successful for the brand, and be like, okay, that's again for a company that basically deals in risk, and risk assessment, sort of analyzing the risk of turning that off, and building something new, and how long that would take and whether that would be effective. So that was a really amazing challenge, and we came up with this We're On It platform, which was about, came from the idea of, we got to replace Harvey, but then realizing that all other sort of problem solvers and superheroes made an awful lot of mess and noise, and it was kind of about them. And the joy of Harvey was, it was like, I was never here. No one will ever speak of this again, which is really how you want insurance to be. So we almost put the kind of control back into the hands of the consumer by having these superheroes show up and be like, I will tow your car, and being like, yeah, I'm fine, I've got Direct Line. And like, that's sort of the gag. And we've done fun things across the couple of years that we've had that, of like, just these sort of crazy epic CG work to kind of, they make these amazing trips to get there, and then you build up the balloon and then you burst the balloon. And then the last couple we've done, we took the superheroes on holiday because they were kind of, they just weren't needed, and we got to work with Marvel and the upcoming, it's out now, Thor, Love and Thunder. But that was an amazing experience. So that was, again, big blockbuster stuff. And you're kind of asking me about the other stuff, but I think if I work through the squads, what I can tell you about and what's maybe, not quite public. Got some super exciting pitch wins, recently, and new clients with new perspectives on modern Britain, which is what we're all about, And
we don't want to jump the gun in case some of them aren't out of NDA yet.
No, exactly. I'm just trying to be good and not break any embargoes or whatever. But I think we've got some really interesting work on Robinsons coming next year, and we've also got some really fun work on Fridge Raiders, which I just makes me smile when I think about it. And they're still sort of TV led, and then we've got some. Oh, gosh, I'm trying to think now. What else is going on? Direct Line for next year will be interesting. We're actually doing, it's not just about blockbuster stuff. We've got this other platform around getting people to awareness that they're not on comparison sites, and it's the bluntest instrument ever about it being like the worst alibi in the world to say that you bought your car insurance on a comparison site and you went with Direct Line, and it's like proof that you're a liar. And that's very socially driven. It's really silly. And we've got great work for Siemens coming out. We've got some really interesting work. I can't say that. Deutsche Telekom, we have an amazing brief for next year. Amazing. Continuing our Gen Z, supporters of Gen Z campaign. So yeah,
I'm hearing that more and more actually at the moment. With we were involved in a pitch with an agency who will remain nameless for a big brand that will remain nameless. But they were saying we need clever ideas to get Gen Z on board, and I don't know why. I get the sense, again, as very much an outsider, someone who isn't in this industry, but is ancillary to it, that sort of every 5 to 10 years there becomes this kind of big amount of attention on a cohort, as if millennials, which is my cohort, all move in one block, and then once they're all over 20, it's like, right, now we need to get the next block.
Yeah, it's totally generational, isn't it? It's a 10-year cycle of looking at your super users. I mean, for telco, of which obviously we have a lot in the building, the stats on phone use of young people, let's just call them young people, not Gen Z. They use twice as much data as anyone else. They are our super users. And so I think it's fair to think about strategizing around them in a different way. I also think I think partly why we segment audiences possibly more than we used to is possibly because of the way that it's not so much this idea that you think you or they all think as a amorphous group. It's more that they are in quite different places.
Yeah.
I still watch a lot of TV, but I think it's purely because of sport.
Yep.
And that's one of the things that brings everyone to the TV.
Yeah.
Whereas, in terms of where a 16-year-old is versus a 25-year-old versus a 35-year-old, those times of life and the way they engage through their devices is actually really quite different. So again, if you're going to do bespoke, authentic work, then you do have to kind of go, okay, this is the approach for young people or under 25s or whatever you want to call it.
I mean, that must really be putting working in advertising to the test, because the transformation in technology that we were talking about not long ago it appears to be a what's the word they use, exponential process. Because say you're in the 90s and you're about my age, 29 still, your TV is still very much like what TV was for the audience in the 60s. 30-year gap there, but it's basically the same thing. It's a box and it broadcasts. Now the distance between, so let's say the same time, 1992 to 2022, and that way your way of consuming is completely different. TV now is not what TV was then at all.
But it's going to be again.
Yes, so...
But it will be, because Netflix is going to put ads in and release shows at specific times, and guess what? You got telly again.
It's broadcast, yeah. Well, we were talking about this on the drive up, that, we've been in this era of, I really don't want to tread on anyone's toes in case there are any of them are clients here, but we're in this era where all the big sort of entertainment giants have been on a sort of future model, like it will be profitable eventually and just keep it rolling. So we've got Spotify and Netflix and people like that. And we've kind of had this 10-year dream that all of our entertainment choices are going to be very, very different. And then, like you just said, some things just going to...
Some things just come back, don't they?
Yeah, there are some things you can't shift. And it's like, if you're not paying for it, which we, in some sense we aren't. But we're paying very inexpensively, Spotify £10 a month as opposed to £10 a record.
And you're being given it all in a oneer so that you can consume it all in 10 hours and then like one more, It's interesting. I read a piece, I can't remember where it was. Again, I don't want to take credit for someone else's ideas, but I think it was in the FT, about the age of convenience being over, and we will look back on that time where we could get an Uber within 3 minutes anywhere for
you think that's not going to be...
No, I mean, Uber's already not what it was.
Yes.
For good reason.
Yes.
Because it was an exploitative model.
Right.
It wasn't sustainable.
Yes.
In the same, in terms of actually people making a living, as I understand it.
Yes.
So therefore, that's why Uber is more expensive now, and there's less of them because there's more competition for drivers, which is all kind of a good thing, right? And Netflix is the same. Like we lived in an age for a short period where it was really cheap and you could get everything you wanted.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it was like, this isn't actually that sustainable from a financial point of view. Yeah. And so we're going to remodel it. But we will look back on the last sort of 5 to 7 years and be like, there was this magical time.
Yeah.
And it is like almost like a little mini age of convenience.
Do you think it's going to be something like, for about a decade, we thought there was such thing as a free lunch?
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
That's time. No, I'm joking. That's not what we're going to wrap on, because we got 3 minutes left. So I'm going to cram in some stuff about music. Because you say you went to Glasgow School of Art.
I did.
Which means you probably have a strong interest in music. Taste, at least.
I mean, I don't think you can do this job without having good instincts on music and believing in its power.
Yeah.
A lot of people talk about it's 50% of the ad.
Yes.
Which is quite scary.
It's not 50% of the budget, let me tell you.
No, it's certainly, that's a really, really good point, that it isn't, and it certainly doesn't actually occupy 50% of the conversation.
Yes.
So yeah, it's a very key part of what we do.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have to be honest and say it's of the things that I feel are like things that I've really crafted and I'm good at in terms of design and narrative and story and dialogue and performance. There's, music is something I definitely default to experts on. I have a good feeling for it, but I love working with people who know more about it than me.
Well, they're kind of analogous though, aren't they? Insofar as, you will... Because I know nothing about design, as can only be too obvious by wearing sort of pinstripes with a plain blue shirt. But I can imagine that if you can have the same image and just, let's say, either exchange or rebalance the colors, and it will feel very different. Mm-hmm. And again, we have that same thing in music. But what I mean is, we sort of obsessed about this quote at the start of the year, which is that all art aspires to the condition of music. Which is to say that music is very compellingly emotionally informative. You just feel some way when you hear it.
Yeah.
Or you don't, and you hate it when you don't. You're like, this is nothing, I can't listen to this. And I think, visual art is in that same realm. And, that was what Walter Pater was saying, art was moving from let's say, merely representative to, emotionally compelling. Going off on a rant now, but basically all I was wondering was, what do you listen to? What gets you out of bed in the morning music-wise? And do you attend any gigs? What do you go to if so?
Okay, so I have a strange brain in that when I am working, I can't hear anything.
Yeah.
So literally, it drives my husband specifically very mad. But I'm I can go into quite deep work very easily. And so therefore, if I'm listening to music when I'm working, which I enjoy doing, it has to be pop music. It's like, it's ridiculous. Like I can listen to the most insanely upbeat sort of cheesy pop music. And that's sort of the gym music as well. So there's mild obsession with Maneskin at the moment. I'm really sorry. It's so cheesy. But like, I also listen to film score. It's interesting you were talking about film score to create mood and environment. In terms of music, I have not been to a gig for quite a long time.
They went out of fashion for a couple of years.
Yeah, there wasn't a lot going on. I went to see Dave Chappelle and Chris Rock recently.
Brilliant.
I went to see John Cooper Clarke, who I'm obsessed with at the moment.
Clarke, yeah.
Dr. Clarke, and I
saw him instead of Metallica at Glastonbury.
So that's the sort of thing. I think I'm choosing language and comedy at the moment in sort of for performative things. But yeah, no, I mean I feel like I have been to a gig. I went to see Roisin Murphy. Roisin Murphy, and she's amazing. And so yeah, I'll just leave it with that.
Big shout out to Roisin.
Yeah,
I'm gonna hassle you to give us Franki Goodwin's design playlist for when you're working.
Yeah, I will. You'll never want to talk to me again.
Great stuff. Well, we had a hard stop of 1:30 and I could see Lucy hanging out outside the door and I managed to get it 1 minute over the deadline, which is a victory for me. We had Rory Sutherland over at Ogilvy Towers and his
I love him.
Assistant came in, Anna, who runs his whole life. And he's got clients waiting. He's like, give us 15 more minutes, start a fire.
Do you know, the only reason it's hard stop is because the only thing I really, really don't like I don't like being late anyway, but I really don't like being late for I'm coming in to meet for an interview, and I just hate being late for people that don't work for me.
Of course.
Because I'm like, they really don't have to be here.
Of course, yeah.
But very cool. I bet the Rory Sutherland interview was way better than this one. But he's
you get a lot as the interviewer. You get a lot less time to speak when you're with Rory.
Yeah. No, I just listen. I don't read a lot of advertising books, but Alchemy is amazing,
isn't it? Just
yeah, it's amazing.
Well, anyway, Franki, thanks for making time for us. It's been great. I hope we can do it sometime again in some different configuration. And thanks, Lucy, for sorting this out for us.
Thank you so much. Lovely to meet you both.
And you, great.